Good afternoon, everybody. So I want to open the first session. Let's begin. It is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Professor Yoel Walters, who is an Emeritus Professor of Linguistics at Bar-Ilan University in Israel, where he served as chair of the English department. He also contributed a lot to our college here at Western Galilee as the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and academic head. His research focuses on bilingualism, language impairments, and sociolinguistics. And the overview he presents was done in collaboration with Professor Yulia Laschenko, who is a newcomer scientist to Israel. Welcome, Yulia, from Russia, and currently affiliated with Bar-Ilan University Bilingual Language Acquisition Lab. So, Yoel, please, your stage.
Thank you. Now my video, audio and video are on. I got it's 3 minutes before we were supposed to start, so I'll try to. First, I'll share my screen. I'm going to do something a little bit different than I usually do. I'm looking for my. Tell me when it's shared. Hang on.
Yoel, it doesn't mean you have another 3 minutes because we're always behind. Okay, so.
I shouldn't have. I should not have taken a breath here, but oh, excellent. Okay, but I don't see your pictures. That's not good. Okay, you'll have to.
But if you shared something, we don't see it.
You don't see the share? Okay.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Share.
Now I believe it's going to be okay.
Do you see the share now?
Yes, now we can see it. Yes.
But I want to put it in
presentation mode.
Presentation mode here, and it won't do that. I have to do it, I think, before I share. Hang on, let me try to do that. There, I used up my 3 minutes already.
They weren't yours to begin with.
I realize. I got the message. I understand.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just joking.
It's still not in.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's in
Yes.
full screen?
Yes.
Okay, and I see 5 of your pictures on the side. So, okay. So the title, this is not really an overview of all the talks. You're all going to talk about very specific things, but I wanted to take a step back. I call it from language to literacy and beyond, and I'm going to speak mainly about beyond. Okay, so how do I do this? Let's see. As you can see, I'm not very technically oriented. It's not moving to the next screen. No, just.
You want to try the arrow keys?
It's because I have double screen. I think that it's scrolling on my top on my laptop, but not on the next screen.
I'll try use the right
right click.
Right click and then choose next.
No. Apologies for the technical issue here. Right click on what?
On the presentation screen and next.
Right click and all it lets me do is next slide.
Next slide, yes.
No, it's right click on the present. It's just, there's no next there. You know what? I'm going to leave the double screen and just work with one screen. Let me try to share this again. Now, do you see a slide mode?
Yes, we see the slide.
All right. Do you see the slide is the take-home messages?
No, the first slide with the heading. And
Wow.
maybe you can show it in not in presentation mode, and then it's easily
That's
to.
what I'm trying to do. But you know what? I'll just pull out the upper screen, and maybe that will work.
Joe,
Okay.
maybe would you like me to open the presentation from my screen?
If you could do that, that would be
Yeah,
great.
I'm not sure if I've got the final version, just the last you sent me yesterday.
Okay, so that's excellent. Then
Okay, I'll do that. Just a moment.
okay, does everyone see what Yulia's sharing?
Just a moment. Sorry, I need 1 minute to do that. Yeah. Okay, share. And I'll open the slideshow mode. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Does everyone see?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so
is it okay? Take-home messages.
In my style, here are the take-home messages. Don't be afraid of complexity. You'll see a lot of it, and beware of dichotomies, and focus on the individual child. And as you've had in the last 4 minutes, you need patience and perseverance to get good results. Next. So here's an old picture of what used to be brain behavior mapping. This is just to give some background. I don't want you to look at all the details. You have here the language areas, Broca's in purple, Wernicke's area in green. And in the old days, what they used to do was they would say each of these areas is responsible. For instance, Broca's is responsible for expressive language, and the green area, Wernicke's, is responsible for comprehension. Reading is in the back there in the little purple section. Michal is telling us that it's showing only Broca's. It's not showing.
No, Michal is trying to translate and give highlights of the lecture. You can continue and ignore the chat.
Okay. Only highlights, so not each and every word.
Okay. I didn't know there was simultaneous or sequential translation. In any case, if you look carefully at this diagram, you'll see that there are arrows. In the old days, the 50 years ago, when I was a student in Boston, the conventional approach was localization. You had a particular piece of anatomy that was responsible for some kind of a behavior, language, reading, and that's not the approach today is more connectionist. That's why you see the arrows there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here's a complex diagram of something more recent that talks about coracle organization. So here you see that the connections, the arrows in the diagrams below below the model above it are very much many more arrows, many more connections, and there's a model that really goes into a lot more detail than it did in the past. You have a phonological component, you have a vocabulary component, conceptual networks. Okay, next slide, please. So here's the outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to first deal with language and then literacy, and then we'll talk about the beyond. The beyond has to do with motor skills and social skills, and then we'll talk about the overlapping conditions. What happens when someone has something called DLD, which I'll explain in a second, or dyslexia? Is there motor involvement? Is there not? I'm talking here about a lot of impairments and conditions, And once upon a time, when I was first at the University of Illinois, a well-known psychologist by the name of Bill Brewer said, "Why would you want to look at impairments to know something about normal language? It would be like taking a sledgehammer and chopping up a computer to understand something about how a computer works." And I said, well, that's because I'm not necessarily interested in understanding how language works in everyone. I want to help children. So that was my response to him. Next slide, please. So we'll start with language and developmental language disorder. I don't expect you to read the slide. I'll summarize it. Basically, on all the slides, I'm going to present how prevalent this condition is and give a short definition and tell you some of the, a couple more details. So DLD, which used to be called SLI, primary language impairment, developmental aphasia, is found in about 7 to 10% of children. That's 1 out of 14. And many, many people don't know what this is. Isn't it interesting that ASD, autism spectrum disorder, is 1 in 60. Fewer children are diagnosed with this condition, and almost everyone can tell you about that they've heard of ASD. Okay, so it's basically a neurodevelopmental condition, early childhood, and it also persists into adulthood and involves spoken language. Okay, go ahead, next slide. It's as I said in the take-home messages, you want to try to avoid dichotomies. So here we have a study that Nama Friedman from Tel Aviv University did, and she identified 4 types of it was called SLI, now it's called DLD. One in phonological, another syntactic, another pragmatic, another has to do with lexicon, and there are very much there are overlaps between these. Another slide, and here's a more from a parent teacher group that works with developmental language disorder in the not the inner circle but the next concentric circle. You see there that DLD has to do with words and speech sounds and social language. That's pragmatics. And then there are all sorts of other different planets that go out from this to talk about the details. Next slide. Okay, now for literacy. Remember, 7 to 10% for DLD, and for dyslexia, here's a recent study, 5 to 15% among elementary school children, and it's much higher in boys. And their definition there is taken from the DSM, which is the Takanon, or the Bible of psychiatric conditions. It has to do with word recognition, decoding, and spelling. Next, please. And here's a model of reading taken from Nama Friedman at a conference, I think that Vered organized many years ago, that was face-to-face in the Western Galilee College. I sat next to Nama Friedman, who was about to give us her talk, and I told her my son was recently diagnosed with dyslexia. And she said, "What kind?" And I didn't understand the question. She said, well, there at the time, she said, there were 12 types of dyslexia. You see a very complex model here, and you can have dyslexia that fits into one of these components, or it fits into 2 of them together. So there's another diagram, a little more detail. Today, I think she's identified something like 21 different types. And the next slide will show you, here there are 11 types given, and the first 4 on your slide are the most frequent ones. So the more you study, the more you can find other details. But you should know, next slide, here, this one. Here you have very different kinds of subtypes that are related to reading and vision and auditory and writing and spelling, but these can overlap. And that's going to be one of the main points of the talk. Okay, next. So now we move to an area that many of you don't know about, and I only know a little about, but these are the motor strip and the sensory strip on the brain. And what you should note here is that the tongue, where the tongue and the lips and the eyes are, these are the places in the brain that are responsible for what goes on in dyslexia or what doesn't go on in dyslexia and in DLD, developmental language disorder. Okay, next. Motor skills there's a condition that's diagnosed in the DSM that's called developmental coordination disorder. It's impairment in ability, muscle tone, and other kinds of difficulties in movement, and it's more prevalent in boys than it is in girls. Next. And then now we're in the social area, and the social skills or pragmatic. This is also something that's it could be part of what's called DLD, a pragmatic kind of communication disorder, but it has its own status, and it includes 7 to 11% of children who are diagnosed in elementary school and in preschool, and this too is more common. It's 2.5 more times common in boys. And you see in the bullets at the bottom of this, in the middle of the slide, it's use of language to make greetings, adapting to context and to what your listener needs to hear, conversational turn-taking, storytelling, and understanding non-literal language, like making inferences, humor, metaphor. Next. So those were the 4 places that we should take into account if we want to think about each individual child. We can focus on language, we can focus on literacy, but we should also keep in mind that motor skills and social skills are important. So here are the overlapping conditions. There are going to be a few slides here. Okay, so what about motor impairment? Is there any involvement in motor impairment? Well, it turns out that children who are diagnosed with DLD, 20 to 75% of them have some kind of difficulties. And where does this show up in the preschool? Another story from my dyslexic once upon a time child. The preschool teacher told me that, hey, he really doesn't like to use pencils. In those days, they used pencils, not computers in preschools. And then I realized that maybe he had some kind of a motor condition. Of course, in those days, I was in complete denial. But it turns out that motor skills and fine motor skills in particular, like using a pencil or a pen, crayon, are definitely related to DLD, but not all cases, 20 to 75%. Next.
Yoel, sorry to interrupt. You have 3 minutes left. And
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm moving fast. I'm almost done. The outline set up to 7. So what about dyslexia? Is there motor impairment? This is what here you have about 80% children have problems with balance, muscle tone, coordination. Next. And reading this, it goes in both ways. Reading disability in 55% of children also found evidence of developmental coordination disorder. And though children diagnosed with motor impairment, 63% of those children had some kind of dyslexia issue. But we should keep in mind there's no causal connection. It's not that the motor skill impairment causes the reading disability. Next, and I almost to the last. And then there's something that I'm sure other people, most people have heard of, ADHD. This occurs in 15.5% of school-age children. It has to do with attention problems and impulsivity. If you look in the middle of the slide, the bullets there talk about the language issues related to ADHD. Children wander off topic, they blurt out their answers, they have difficulty remembering instructions, and they don't wait their turn. And that makes them at greater risk for relationships with their friends. Next. And 40–50% of children diagnosed with ADHD also have speech and language problems. Next. And next slide, please. And this also in a review paper of 21 studies involving almost 7,000 children, they found that there was a significant association of language skills and social competence. And I think we're getting to the last slide. DLD children with DLD language issues, they have deficits in social skills. They're not as, they can be not well socialized. They have difficulty recognizing emotion. And now dyslexia and social skills in the last slide. Children with dyslexia, not all of them, but some of them may have difficulties with social discourse. They may not be accepted by their peers. And they may show negative emotions. Is there another slide? Or is that? There it is. Thank you very much. Is there a minute for questions?
Thank you, Yoel. We'll take the questions at the end of the session.
Okay, very good.
How much time we have.
Thank everyone. Thank you very much for listening.